Hello, I'm Katie and this is Stepmum Space, where each episode we talk candidly about the fairy tales and scary tales of stepmom life. So whether you've been a stepmom for years, you're just starting out, or you want to understand the stepmom in your life a little bit better, this is the place for you. I am so grateful to all of you who write to me and who've got in touch to share your experience of stepmom life. It means the world to be able to offer a little bit of support on this bumpy and often isolating journey. I started Stepmum Space almost a year ago now and the reception has been phenomenal, but I want to do more. I'm working on a lot of exciting new content to support stepmums, couples and stepfamily groups, so to find out more and to be registered for discounts on upcoming events, please do subscribe at www.stepmumspace.com. My guest today is Nietta. Nietta is a stepmom to 4 kids and has 2 of her own. Nietta admits she went into stepmomming fairly naively as she has a strong co-parenting relationship with her own ex. In this episode, we chat about all sorts, from managing your expectations of stepchildren to enforcing boundaries with the ex, 2 of them in Nietta's case, oh yes, to how to manage it when you muck up as a stepmom. It's a great chat and you're going to love Nietta's honesty. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for joining me.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
And I've got to say, it's so nice to see your face because we've spoken on the phone and we've messaged and it's nice to see you in, I was going to say real life, but you're on a screen. So, but it's nice to see you anyway. So look, tell me all about your family.
My family is massive, is chaos. Me and my partner have been together a couple of years. He has 4 children, ages from 4 to 15. I have 2 children, 8 and 12. So we have 3 smaller ones in the house, 3 bigger ones in the house that all come with their own issues with preteen and teenage years, and the 3 little ones are boys. So that's manic. One on the way, which is another boy. So I think we're on our way to building the next World Cup team. We're getting there. And we have my 2 children Monday to Friday, and they are with their dad at weekends, every weekend. And we have just one majority custody of my partner's 2 smallest as well. So they are now with us Monday to Friday as well. So we have 4 full-time in the house. And the 2 eldest ones kind of split their time between the houses depending on where they want to be because they're a bit older, so they have the choice.
I'm just going to break that down to make sure I'm understanding, and I've drawn a little diagram with me. I guess anyone who's listening is probably like visualizing it in their head. So am I right in thinking that his 4 children, the 2 older ones are one birth mum and the 2 younger ones are another birth mum?
Yes, so first wife and then the partner before me. Yeah.
You mentioned that you had the kids Monday to Friday. So does that mean at weekends you're kind of child free for the most part?
Depending. So the 2 youngest ones now go to their mum because that's what was arranged in the court order. So they're with mum at the weekends, every weekend. My 2 are generally with their dad. I have a really lovely co-parenting relationship with my ex-husband. He has them pretty much every weekend. My partner's eldest 2, again, just kind of pick and choose. They tend to do alternate weekends, and those alternate weekends tend to be when I'm away anyway. So we do usually get 1 or 2 child-free weekends a month, which is lovely, which is all about to end. But for now, it's lovely.
Do you know, it's so funny. I remember when myself and my husband first got together, we both had children from previous relationships, but we also had every other weekend free together. And at the time, I found it so difficult because whilst I was really happy for my son to go and see his dad, and I knew that was the right thing to do, I missed him like mad, and I never, had him to share him, so to speak. But all my friends used to go, oh my gosh, I'm so jealous of you. You get every other weekend to yourself. And I will never forget telling a friend that we were pregnant with a kind of ours baby. And they just went, what the hell are you doing? You're giving up every other weekend.
Exactly
together.
That is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I need to find a really, really good childminder.
Well, you'll have some older babysitters, I guess, by that point, if the eldest is 15. So maybe.
A little bit of bribery, a little bit of money goes a long way.
Yeah, especially with teenagers.
Yeah.
So, look, it sounds like there is a lot to unpack in your story. Do you want to take us to the beginning and kind of share a bit about when you met your partner and how your relationship evolved?
Oh, how it evolved. It was actually very quick. I met my partner. He was actually my postman.
So many jokes.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'll leave them to your imagination, but yes, I do get quite a few. And we met during COVID, and it was definitely not supposed to be a thing. I remember finding out that he had 4 children and was just immediately like, nope, not for me. He's really nice, but not for me. And I think we were just all a little bit lonely and a little bit bored during COVID. And I actually had me and my ex-husband live about 200 miles from each other. So I had him coming to stay at my house at the weekends to see the kids. So then my partner, once I met him, it kind of became my escape. I got to leave my house and I'd go and stay with him at the weekends. And, like I say, me and my ex-husband get on fine, but spending every single weekend together when you're, 2 years post-separation was not what we were ready for. And it just rolled on from there quite quickly. And I think we'd been together about a year, and I got served notice on my house. We were renting after moving to where we had moved to. I was in a bit of a position, wasn't quite sure where I was going to go or what I was going to do. It was the middle of COVID, so viewing houses wasn't really a thing either. And he had turned around and kind of said, look, we can make this work and we can accommodate if you need to move in with me for a while. So that's what we kind of did, because I almost was left with no choice, which doesn't sound very nice, but that's where we were at. And we ended up kind of saying, well, if this is the way things are going anyway, what's the point in me moving in for a bit and then moving back out? So we ended up doing this conversion of the house because we have so many children, putting up stud walls, making bedrooms, converting the garage and whatnot. And that was it. And that was just, I think, a lot quicker than what I would have done it if I hadn't been pushed into the position that I was in. I also walked in very naively. I walked in, I think, with an idea that me and my co-parent have such a lovely relationship. Yeah, very naively, like I could make friends with his exes and everything would be lovely, and definitely had blinkers on. And then walked in and then found out the truth that so many of us live, unfortunately.
Oh gosh. Tell us a bit about that.
I actually got on with his ex-wife, the oldest two's mum, quite well at the beginning. I took her for lunch one day. I remember messaging her and saying, it'd be really nice to get to know you. I'm obviously going to be around now. It would be nice to get to know you. And we went for lunch and we actually got on really well. It was really nice. And then there was a catalyst. And I think it was something that someone thought I had said, something that had been reported by a child that to my knowledge is not remembered. I was in the presence of lots of other adults. None of them remember this being said either. But that was it. And there was one thing, and it was a catalyst. And, I remember going to her and kind of saying, I'm not going to say that I remember this because I don't. But if I've upset you, I'm sorry. If I've upset my stepdaughter, I'm sorry. I was learning as well. I've never done this. I've never dealt with this many children. I've never dealt with this many co-parents. And that's the thing. I think we just, as step parents, almost don't get afforded the respect to fail when we fail as well, because we do. And I apologized and I went tail between legs and I said, this doesn't have to be an issue. And it became an issue, unfortunately. And things got very high conflict very quickly. We had an awful lot of stuff. Stuff was put online, fake accounts were made. There were then issues with the eldest two because of things that they were overhearing from their mum. So that relationship changed very quickly.
That's hard.
It is. And then, like, my favorite word is boundaries, because all of a sudden I had these gates go up and I was like, okay, no, something needs to change, because she's obviously not going to change, which means that how I respond to this and how my household and my relationship works needs to change, so that we are protecting ourselves, from, unfortunately, what is 5 minutes down the road.
But do you know what? It's really difficult to understand why somebody's gone from kind of yeah, let's go for lunch, let's do this, to suddenly shifting. Do you think there was other stuff going on behind the scenes?
I know that she's had problems with partners before. So my partner's other bio mum to the two little ones, they never got on. That was never nice. From what I know of bio mum number two, the little one's mums, she was just a lot more quiet about it. It was kind of like, don't rock the boat. I'm not that way. I'm not quiet about it. So I think she just kind of almost lived, from what I have heard, lived in a state of just dealing with it. Just kind of taking everything that was being thrown at her.
Hmm.
It's something that me and my partner talk about a lot, because I say that I walked in with blinkers, which I did because of my co-parenting relationship. But I have friends who have high conflict parenting relationships, so I knew that it was a thing. I
Hmm.
knew that not everybody has it easy. But he'll openly admit as well, he didn't tell me everything because it would have scared me away.
How do you feel about that?
Lots of ways. I feel lots of ways. I'm angry. I've said, and I've voiced it an awful lot, that I'm angry. I don't feel like I was told the history of what I needed to know before I made a choice to move me and my children in here.
Hmm.
And I can't say what I would have done if I'd known. Maybe again, I would have walked in with a naivety that I could have changed it, potentially. Maybe I would have run a mile. I guess we'll never know. We'll never
Hmm.
know.
And I think you can have all the information, but it's not to say how you're going to experience it.
Yeah, and I think there's an ego to it. I think even when things started becoming high conflict, I still had an idea. I can change this. I'm a good co-parent. There's no reason that this can't get better. There was a definite, and I will admit it, there was an ego. There was an ego that I could make everything better. And you have to, I think, realize that if you're not the problem, or if you're not creating the problems, you don't have the power to make it better. That's in the hands of the person who is creating the problems.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important lesson for us all, because so much of the time we kind of think, oh, it'll be okay, I'll come along and fix everyone. And that's such a classic role of the rescuer for the stepmom to fall into, and to kind of really be jarring with that wicked stepmother so desperately and wanting to fix everything and wanting to make everybody happy. And it actually just causes more problems, because we get hurt when it doesn't work, we feel upset and rejected when the children don't respond how we're hoping they will, and it's a path to nowhere good, really.
It is. I think there's such a need to prove ourselves when we walk into that relationship, and more so walk into the kids' lives. I don't know whether we're trying to prove it to other people or to ourselves. I remember thinking, four kids, okay, well, I'm a mum. I'm a mum. I've got to, it can't be that hard. It can't be that difficult. Co-parenting, well, that can't be that difficult. Me and my co-parent get on great. There is a naivety, and there is a trying to prove it to, I think, everyone around you, and to the kids, and to your partner, and to yourself. And you end up holding an awful lot back. And that turns into resentment. I found that turned into resentment quite quickly.
And how did that resentment show up in your home and your relationship?
I tried really hard to not let it show up in the relationship as such. It was definitely more myself. I felt my mental health go downhill quite quickly, and I really failed at the very beginning to bond with my stepsons, especially the two smallest ones. I think they have been raised so differently to mine, that again I came in with this ego of, I can fix this, I can fix them, like they needed fixing. Their children, they've not been raised the same way mine has raised, but they don't need fixing. And because of that, because I think I had taken on such, I don't want to say a burden, but this need to prove to myself that I could be everything that I wanted to be as a step parent, I ended up just working myself into the ground emotionally. And then because I had worked myself into the ground emotionally, I couldn't give what I needed to give to my relationship. and I couldn't give what I needed to give to my stepsons. And I ended up at the beginning, and it's a really jarring thing to say because they are small and they are so beautiful, just the most beautiful boys. But for so long, there was such a resentment towards them. It was, well, I'm parenting you how I parent mine, so why are you not getting it? Why are you not doing this the way I want you to do this? Why are you not learning this quick enough? You know, why are you not doing what mine do? And instead of sitting back and thinking they're not doing things the way that mine do them because I've not raised them, they have different habits and different routines. And rather than sitting back and seeing what I can see now, it just was the bubbling resentment of, you're not learning quick enough. Why is this so difficult? I expected to be able to walk into that role and change what I needed and prove what I needed to prove to everyone around me. And I drove myself into the ground, and it was horrible. I imagine it was, if you ask anyone in the house, it was probably horrible for everyone around. It took some self-reflection. I think it takes a lot of self-reflection to be able to sit back and actually say, I was wrong, you know, that my approach was wrong at the beginning as well.
You spoke earlier about how we're not given space to fail as stepmums. And I could not agree more, because, you know, if you fuck something up as a mum and you're like, oh God, I did the most awful thing this morning. Like, I told them that the tooth fairy wasn't going to come because they'd been naughty, or, you know, you say something and then the words go out of your mouth and you're like, shit, get them back in, but you can't. Everyone has a laugh about it, but it is not the same when you fail on these stepmom situations. And actually, you're probably more likely to fail because there's no bloody role models admitting things or telling it how it is, or all of those good things that we need. So I think it's not surprising that you went in, you know, having this brilliant relationship with your ex-husband and thinking, oh, we can create that as well. And it becoming such a fall from, I guess, where your ambition was to where your family actually ended up.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's not a bad thing because it's worked now, but I feel like there was a crawl out of a hole. It got to a point where everything was just in a hole and everything had kicked off. And even when I found out about this pregnancy, my house was not in a stable place. And that was really hard to deal with as well. The thought of myself, of bringing another child into this situation, was terrifying. And you just, like I say, it was the self-reflection to say, okay, well, obviously what I've been doing hasn't been working, so we need to approach this in a different way. And we crawled out of that hole together, all 6 million of us, it feels. We crawled out of that hole together, and things have come on so massively just in the last 6 months.
So what sort of things were you asking of your stepchildren that kind of caused that conflict?
What I considered such basics: put your plates away, or put them on the kitchen side because the boys were little. Try and eat without getting food on the floor, the walls, the ceilings, everywhere. Just small things in the way that mine had been raised differently. In tidying up after yourself, in pleases and thank yous. The smallest, well, it was 3 when I moved in, screaming, just screaming. It had been reinforced that if they screamed enough, they would get what they wanted. And that was just never going to be the way that I parented. So moving in, I think I seemed almost like a bull in a china shop. I was kind of like, okay, we're changing everything. Everything's changing. I'm not doing this. I'm not standing for this. Do I think I was wrong? No, because I really wouldn't have been able to live with the screaming. Do I think I probably could have taken a softer approach? Definitely.
I would really identify with that as well, actually, in my own experience. And I think sometimes things that seem so normal to us, like have a sensible bedtime and go to bed, I think because we think, oh, but surely everybody does that, it's a real surprise then when people don't. And if you're somebody, I remember reading in Wednesday Martin's Step Monster that actually women who have quite strong ideas about how children should be raised tend to be the ones who struggle most as stepmoms, because they look at what's happening and they think, but hang on, that's not good for the kids. So like whether it's social media, which lots of people talk about, is kind of a massive push point around, well, the stepchildren are allowed it at mum's house, but stepmom doesn't want it because she knows it's bad for them. But then you just end up getting into these massive battles, which, like you say, it's like you're not going to change your view on what's right, but actually, would you go about it the same way again? Probably not. But it all comes from caring about them, and that's, I think, the thing that's so, I was going to say heartbreaking, and then I thought, is that an exaggeration? But it isn't. It's heartbreaking to know that you want to do something for the good of somebody else, but actually everybody else thinks you're being horrible.
Yeah, I think it's causes friction, I think, in a relationship when you walk in as well. Because I was walking in and exactly like you've said, I was going, okay, well, this could be done better for them. They need to be able to sit and eat nicely for them and for everyone else in the house as well. You know, there are other kids in the house. And by that point, my kids are in the house. So you're seeing something and you're going, okay, I care about you. So I want you to get up to speed where you can be more self sufficient, where you are potty trained, where you are gearing up for school. And then my partner very much looked at that as, well, you're calling me a bad parent. You're telling me I've not done it properly.
Yeah.
There's no really tactful way to say, yeah, kinda, but also no, but also I don't want to cause an argument. So I think that was really difficult as well. I think when you storm in there and you try and make changes, which I did, and like you say, would I do it again? Yes. Would I do it differently? Yes. But I would absolutely do the same thing. The boys have come on leaps and bounds. They're just the most amazing, amazing children. But I didn't consider my partner in that. I didn't consider how me making those changes made him feel. And again, admitting failures and that self reflection, even when he was trying to tell me, I didn't listen because I kept saying, I'm doing this for the kids, I'm doing this for the household.
Yeah, and also it's quite hard when you've got your own children there. And we've talked about this on previous episodes about how we're told so often treat all the kids the same, or have the same rules for the same kids. But then actually it's really difficult, because if they're going to other houses where they've got different rules, then of course it's going to be hard for everybody. And it's probably just for everybody to just have a bit of compassion for everybody else in the house. But obviously when you're dealing with like 3 and 5-year-olds, they're not known for their compassion.
Yeah.
Particularly to adults. So at this stage, how often were the little boys with you, and how often were the older children with you?
So we were doing with the boys, we had a week on, week off. So it was, a Sunday to a Sunday night to a Sunday night. So we had a full week with them, and then they had a full week with mum. The oldest two, again, for a good year or so now, they've just kind of flitted around. My stepson, who is 13, he tends to do week on, week off, unless he changes his mind for whatever reason, but he tends to stick to that as well. My stepdaughter, she spends most of her time at her mum's, but she'll kind of choose to flip backwards and forwards depending on what we're doing. They're very lucky. They live, we live really close to their mum. So we are within walking distance. And because they are older, they can just pop over whenever they feel like it. Mine have always been with me the Monday to Friday. So it was quite nice at the beginning, because where I was finding it quite hard to deal with the boys, we had that week on, week off. So I would have a really full on week with them where I would just stress myself out, something chronic. And then I had a whole week to unwind and just be with mine, which felt amazing at the time. In hindsight, I realize now it was not the best thing, because the anxiety gearing up to the transition day again on the Sunday and then coming back would ruin half my week. And it was because I wasn't dealing with it properly.
Yeah, I mean, I recognize that. And I know a lot of women do. I remember talking to a mum on the side of a football pitch and saying, I've just got this really weird thing going on with my chest. And I don't really know. It's like tight to breathe. And she was like, that's anxiety. I was like, oh, okay, right. Because, I'd always kind of thought, I get really worried about this. But then the physical symptoms take over and you're like, shit, this is like serious. I have to do something about this. So you were experiencing that anxiety in the run up to them coming. And I guess that obviously has a knock on effect with everything else in your home. How did you manage that?
I wasn't managing. To outside, I was amazing. I'd taken on these children and everything was great. And oh my goodness, aren't you mad? But isn't that lovely? And on the inside, I was falling apart. I was going to bed at 7 p.m. because I couldn't stand to be around any of them. My children were finding it hard, and I was finding it hard watching them struggle. It felt like a constant battle. It felt like a battleground. My house felt like a battleground, and that was down to no one but me because I wasn't managing. So I wouldn't say that I was managing at all.
And how did you get yourself out of that?
An awful lot of mindset work, which has never really been my thing. I'm a very practical person. I'm a very logical person. It's black, it's white. I don't do grey areas. I don't really do emotions. It's, you get the job done. That was part of my problem moving in, that I almost didn't look at it emotionally. I didn't consider how everyone was feeling. I walked in and said, right, there's a job to do. I'm going to do that job and I will succeed at that job. So mindset work had kind of always been a bit airy fairy to me. And I started to look into it more, and I just started to almost put myself through therapy, almost sit with myself. And every single time I had a negative emotion, I flipped it, which has now become somewhat of an annoyance to my friends and family because I'm constantly telling them to flip the way they're feeling. And they're going, no, I just want to feel bad for a second. Just leave me alone. But, if something wasn't going my way, it wasn't a case of let's get upset about that. It was okay, but what is going my way and what has worked? So what do I do now? It was, this isn't the boys' fault. The boys haven't been raised this way. Maybe my expectations of them are far too great for what they're used to. Expecting them to come back from their mums and immediately fall into a routine, because that's what my kids have always done, and then realizing that they've never been made to do that before. So I think it was just focusing less on my stress and more on how I was making other people feel with what I was doing. And I very quickly became far more in tune with my stepsons and what they needed and how they each reacted. They are completely different boys. They're close in age, but they're completely different boys. So finding out what worked for each of them. I'm not going to say I'm not a disciplinarian. I am. There's discipline when there needs to be discipline, but they both react completely differently and in different ways. Yeah. So it was tuning in to find out, actually, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe what I'm doing isn't working. And as soon as I had that thought process, everything changed. Everything changed.
Which is brilliant. And I think I have to really commend you for taking that step and going, right, okay. And it's what I talk to a lot of women about. The only person you can change is yourself, right? And how you approach those situations can have such a dramatic effect, but it can be really hard when actually you really want other people to change and you really want other people to do things differently, but they're not going to. So I guess the only thing that I would say is, please don't think of yourself as being the problem, because it's an expectations thing, right? And you were not a problem, but I think it's amazing that you could recognize, okay, well, something's not working here. I've got the power of how I respond, so I'm going to take control of that. And it's amazing to hear that it has had such a brilliant effect. So hats off to you. You mentioned at the beginning that the boys were with you more often now. What's led you to that?
We ended up having just some issues with their education, with their schooling. When they were on mum's time, I think she was just having a bit of a hard time. She wasn't making it to school runs. There were an awful lot of lates, and the smallest one was gearing up, so he's just started in September. So there had to be this really quick decision of, do we want this to happen to him as well as happening to his brother? Do we want his brother to go into another school year where he's being late, where he's upset, where he's not making it to school? And there was actually a couple of threats of mum removing them. Mum had ties to about an hour away. And every time there was an upset, it was, I'm going to take them there. I'm going to take them there. And I'm a very legally confident person because I have family in family law, and my partner is not. And I kind of said to him, look, the only thing you can do is go legally. And that was the decision that was sat on for a while. He was not very comfortable doing that. I think the thought of court is so massive to anyone who doesn't understand it. And any future co-parenting relationship that he may have been able to build with her would have been ruined by that. So it was sat on for a while, and then there was this threat again of them being taken. And I think it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And he kind of said, okay, what do I need to do? I'm not going to keep being threatened. What do I need to do? And we did that. So we filed in court, and that took all of about 3 months. And they are now with us Monday to Fridays, and they're with mum 3 weekends a month.
So they're still getting plenty of time with their mum.
Yeah.
And it's almost just a different type of routine.
Yeah, it was really important for us that they still have a really good relationship with their mum. Nobody doubts that their mum loves them. She just wasn't able to give them what they needed and get them where they needed to be. There's never particularly been any conflict on that side. It's not nice, it's not friendly, but it's always been fairly amicable. So we want them to spend time with their mum. They love their mum. They're small boys. We're very open about talking about the co-parents, the mums, the dads. If they've been with mum, it's how's mum? Did you have a nice time?
I can sort of almost imagine like this wall chart in your kitchen on a whiteboard with different family trees and kind of different people joined, because as well, you've got all those different relationships. Like I know my 6-year-old, who is mine and my husband's together, it took him a while to wrap his head around the relationship that he had with my elder son's dad, because he couldn't quite understand, well, my brother goes there all the time, but I never go there. Can I go around one day? And is he something to me then? Or is he, and just trying to get their head around all these people is difficult, isn't it?
It is, like you say, I think I'm going to have to come up with some kind of flow chart so that they all know.
Yeah, exactly. When they go to school and it's like, right, who's in your household? And they're like, I need another bit of paper, miss.
You should see the Christmas cards, the sheer amount of Christmas cards they have.
It sounds really positive that, your relationship with the younger kids is much better, and that they're in a nice routine, and they're obviously still getting to spend a lot of time with their mum, because like I was saying earlier, most people don't have a child to share them. So it is still really painful. And you'll know that from your experience of co-parenting with your ex. You mentioned your eldest stepdaughter, only girl in the family, doesn't come very often. Is there anything you can share with us about why that is?
She doesn't come. I think it's a funny time in her life. She's a 15-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you gravitate towards your mum anyway. I also don't blame her. The house is chaos and the house is full of small boys. I used to joke that, could she take me back to her mum's with her, because it was a much calmer environment. So I do not blame her there at all. And I think because of the conflict between her mum and our household, I do think some of that has been passed over. I don't think she realizes, and I think, and this is all speculation because I don't know what goes on in the other house, but from the way that I have seen the relationship change, I do feel like there were things that were being said, and I do think there were conversations that were being had in front of her. And I almost think that the parental child line is blurred in that house. When she's in our house, she's a child. I know she's 15, but she's a child like the rest of the children. And in that house, I think her and her mum are really great friends, and I think that's amazing. I do. But then I think it's quite hard for her then to come walk back into our space where then she's a child again, and she is asked to do things or told what to do or just treated in a different way than she is at her mum's. She knows that she's welcome here. She knows that we want her here. She knows that we love her and that she can, be here whenever she wants to be here.
Yeah. And, that dynamic of mum's best friend. Yes, it's lovely to have a close relationship with your mum, but it is not, in my opinion, and in the opinions of psychologists that we've had on the show, not healthy to be best friends with your kids. You're a parent, you're not their best friend. So I totally can empathize with you around that situation of being mum's best friend in one house and then coming to the other house and finding it difficult to be a kid. I hear it a lot. It's a really common dynamic, particularly with exes who haven't got a partner, that the child, you know, the eldest daughter falls into that role and becomes sort of mum's best friend, mum's confidant, and all of that, which then, you know, they're sharing things with their kids that quite frankly they shouldn't be sharing, and then that forms an opinion that your stepdaughter will have on yours and your husband's home, whether it's true or not.
It is, and that's a shame, because she was the one that I built a relationship with first. We had a really lovely relationship at the beginning, really quickly. And I know they were quite apprehensive about their dad having another partner. So I took it really slowly, and I was really worried about it. And we fell into having a really lovely relationship really, really quickly. So when that kind of all shifted 6 months ago, that was just such a shame to see it go that way. But I think you said earlier, you know, you can't control how other people behave. You can't control the other household. We make her know that she is loved here and she is a part of this family. But outside of that, you know, that there's not an awful lot you can do. And like I say, I think as well, being a 15-year-old girl, you gravitate to mum anyway.
Earlier on, you were talking about how your mental health had taken a bit of a battering in the earlier days of your relationship, and how you realized that you needed to set some boundaries. Can you share a bit about what they were and how you went about setting and, importantly, enforcing them?
I think the biggest one for me that made the most difference was I went no contact with BioMum 1. Most of the horrible messages, the attacks, things like that would go to my partner's phone. But every now and again, you know, I would get something unsavory. And then when something was put online about 6 months ago, full of all kinds of accusations, I just thought, she's not my co-parent. She's not my co-parent. I've done my best. I've tried. I'm done. And she was blocked on everything. And I had put off doing that because I felt like there was almost a teenage pettiness about blocking people. You know, like, I'm blocking you on WhatsApp. I'm blocking you on. And then I realized it's not. It's protecting me.
Mm-hmm.
Because when something were to kick off, the constant anxiety of hearing your phone ping is not normal. That's not normal. Nobody should be living like that. So that boundary was enforced. She has never been unblocked, even if sometimes I have felt like I have things to say. I have not done it. So that one was a massive one. I don't really need to co-parent with the boy's mum. Again, I leave it to my partner. Boundaries were set there regarding things like pick up and drop offs, things like timings, because she was just quite inconsistent. And that didn't work for our house. You know, if we had plans, we have drop offs and pickups with my children. And like I say, their dad's almost 200 miles away. So they're big pick up and drop offs. You know, and then we could possibly have the older two in the house as well, or we had things planned, and you know, and plans fell through because there were a couple of times where we would try and drop the boys home, and she just wasn't home, and just didn't pick up the phone.
Oh.
So there were kind of boundaries set there around. We need to set, you know, together a time for pickups, for drop-offs. And then enforcing that that's quite hard, because if someone turns up late, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. So there's the expectation as well. And I think that's a massive part of it. I would say our biggest enforcement of that culminated in going to court. That was that enforcement.
Yeah.
You know, which is a hard line enforcement.
But I mean, the thing is, if somebody's notoriously known for not being there on time to pick up their kids, they know that you're not going to leave the kids by themselves, like on the doorstep, and be like, cheerio then. So you don't have anywhere to go with things like that.
That's it. And I think that's where dealing with the expectation and then adjusting, like we have said lots of times here, adjusting how you react. You know, it was a case of, right, stop making plans for directly after they're supposed to be dropped home. Because they say, don't be mad at a clown for being a clown. Ask yourself why you're still going to the circus. Was it me that was being stupid by keep being let down constantly when I knew that they were probably going to be late? That's on me. So it was about adjusting our household so it still ran harmoniously, but so we weren't relying on her timings because they weren't there, unfortunately.
That is admirable to be able to do that. But it also feels like excruciatingly unfair on you that you have to manage your family around somebody who cannot do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it. So again, like, hats off to you. I like the clown analogy.
I think, like I say, I think that got to the point, like say, it is hellishly unfair, which is how that culminated in court. It was like, okay, I've done my bit, I've moved stuff around, but actually I'm not willing to deal with this forever. I'm not. We need things, set in stone, as we have found out in the last month and a half. Unfortunately, a court order also doesn't set things in stone, but it was a step there. It was a step towards it. I think our biggest kind of communicative boundaries were massive in setting when we were willing to be contacted, how we were going to reply. I think something massive for my partner is that he's always felt the need to justify himself. He's a fantastic dad. He really is a fantastic dad, and how he's coped with things that I never knew that people could experience. And he really is fantastic. But because he's such a good dad, he always feels the need to justify himself as a good dad. And that would cause these back and forth, these arguments, these long conversations with like high conflict co-parents. And I was saying, just don't. You need to set the boundary in. You can think whatever you want to think, and you can say whatever you want to say. I don't have to justify myself, and actually you're now talking to yourself.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to spend all evening playing ping pong with you about who the better parent is. I'm not going to do.
And that text tennis is something that we hear so often. And for anybody who's listening, who sees their partner being chastised and got at and all these things, and wants them to go in and defend themselves because actually what's being said is really unfair, I hear you, but stop. Do not respond. No response is a response, and it's a good one.
It is. I mean, I think it's the same thing that I say to the kids. If kids come home from school and go, "Oh, so and so called me a poo head," and I go, "Well, are you a poo head?" And they go, "No," and I go, "Well, then what's the problem? What are you worried about?" And it was kind of the same to him, and she's saying that I've done this. And I'm like, "But have you?" And he's like, "Well, no," and I'm like, then what's the issue?
I think it's just so hard because, as you say, and as you've experienced, and as so many women who listen to the podcast experience, that shit, for want of a better word, is going to be spouted at the stepchildren. So they are going to then believe that. And that's where that horrible cycle comes into, where you want to defend yourself, but then you're like joining the circus. And it's just impossible. It sounds like you've really been to hell and back with it. So where are you now with ex-wife number one?
So I'm completely no contact still. Her and my partner have a lot less contact. We will get a message if she's angry about something. Most of the time he won't reply. He'll then get some kind of message, or sometimes even a call from his parents, because she'll get a hold of them going, but he hasn't replied to me. And it's kind of like, you're not entitled to his time. That message didn't warrant a reply. And we just don't. So he has got an awful lot better, and I think he's realized that he doesn't have to deal with it. And we're actually looking at the moment, which is quite a severe thing, we're actually looking at him going almost no contact as well, because the kids are older now and they both have phones and they live so close. Other than emergencies, there's no real need for them to be in contact, because what they are doing at the moment is not co-parenting. It's a little bit of abuse every couple of weeks, and that's not co-parenting. So actually there's not an awful lot of need for contact there. And I think the contact that is there now, even though it's so much less than what it was, say, a year ago, is still some element of control. So there have been talks about, potentially just eliminating it and making sure that the kids both have good working phones, and that we can always get a hold of them and they can always get a hold of us, and looking at going no contact that way. But it's definitely settled down. but I think it has settled down because we have enforced the boundaries that we've put in.
Well, that's good. Good for you. And so when is your new addition to the family arriving?
Beginning of March. Beginning of March. So that is a whole different thing. That is moving bedrooms around and then introducing all of these different children into this baby, and and I don't know what's going to happen with co-parents there. So I don't know. I'm very excited because this was absolutely not planned, but have become very excited, but also quite anxious as well. I'm a lot older than I was last time. That makes me panic a little bit.
You look young to me.
I was very young when I had the first two. So.
I definitely felt older the second time around. But I like to tell myself that I've got life experience and stuff.
In the space of a year and a half, I've gone from 2 children to almost 7.
Wow.
That's, like I say, bravery or stupidity. We'll find out.
It's a lot for somebody, we've talked about it before on the show, but you in a sort of quote unquote normal family, you have time, you have time to adjust, you have time to get to know one child, you have time, and it's not the same. So hats off to you. I mean, I've taken about 17 hats off to you. I feel like there should be a little pile of hats in the corner. And before I let you go, just share with me a bit about how the kids have reacted to the news of their new baby brother.
I think the 3 smallest boys very excited that there's going to be another boy in the house. I mean, if you can eye up football baby bros, they've already found them. My daughter, my 12-year-old, is now excited. Was not very happy at the beginning because there's so many kids. Was then not happy when she found out it was a boy, another boy. But actually her little maternal side has kicked in and she's very excited now as well. She's the one that's kind of leading the baby name train. And my partner's 2 eldest, I'm not sure. So we'll see. But I think, when they all meet and when he's here, it will be lovely. It will be lovely. They're great. His eldest 2 are really amazing big brother and sister to the smallest 2. So I'm sure they will be exactly the same.
Oh, well, congratulations again. And perhaps when the baby's been born and you've got, had time to recover, you'll come back and have a chat with us again about it.
Yes, and I will probably be 10 times more mad and completely incoherent. Right.
Well, look, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I loved hearing from Nietta, and I hope you did too. So much in that conversation to take away, not least to give ourselves a bit more compassion and permission to fail, because we will. So instead of beating yourself up, try and learn from things and remind yourself what you're doing is hard, really hard. It's no surprise that stepmums suffer much more anxiety and depression than other family members, and that's why the women I work with in one-to-one coaching and group workshops come to me, because I've been there, I understand, and I have got tools and techniques which are proven to help. If you want to find out more about how I can help, head to www.stepmumspace.com and get in touch. And if you've got a story to share, please let me know. You can contact me via the website or on Instagram at stepmumspace. Finally, if you've enjoyed the show, please do rate and review, as it really, really does help other women find us. See you next time.